Hey, it's Guy here from Guide Adventures, and this is the last installment in our using that Kickstarter that my friend Marie wrote called World Building Blueprints, and we're going to finish off the creation of Drakenmore. Now, behind me you can see that I've got just an army of printed minis, which I need to paint up, so yay, but I'm super excited to do that for this Drakenmore game, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the book I'm talking about is this one, and as you can see down below, World Building Blueprints by Marie Mullany, and that was on Kickstarter. You can find the links down below. You can go and late pledge for that. And of course, my own Kickstarter launches next week as of this recording, the 2nd of October. Very exciting stuff, I have to say. Not world building, it is a built world. And I'm hoping that you'll find it full of cool and wonderful stuff, and particularly going to find it full of the stuff that we're working on in today's video. Now, I have created a regional map for my players of just the space that they are going to be playing in. Because if you remember, in the last couple of episodes, we have been building the space where this adventure is going to happen. And so this map here that you can see I've added into the document, this map is the space that I'm going to be in. Now, I used Wonderdraft for this to create this map. I think it is appropriately kind of dull and grey and detailed enough that there's a lot of stuff going on in there. I had a lot of fun making that map. With that, we can jump straight in. Now, we are working on 2E, fantastical locations. Now, I love coming up with fantastical locations, but they have to have a reason. They have to have an existence for why they were there in the first place. And so this is what we're going to be delving into in today. Now, repeat this template as often as desired to describe magical places in your world, their significance to the inhabitants, and how they influence local or global politics. Well, the only place that is of immediate significance, because I do think that the PCs are going to be drawn constantly back to this central place, is Drakvahod, the capital of the Duchy of Drakvahod. And the reason why I say this is because that's where a lot of the action is going to be happening. A lot of the tension is going to be happening as well. So we can start to fill in this template, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. The citadel of Drakvahod has now been created, and I envisage it as a titanic tower stretching upwards with a very gothic top, very pointed, very angular, lots of gargoyles everywhere, because vampires like to stick to tropes. And then it is surrounded by 8 smaller towers, and there are bridges from the 8 smaller towers into the central tower. The central tower itself is hollow, and from there is where the fog billows out into the night sky. And whenever the vampires get together, which is once a year, each of them resides in one of the 8 towers, and there is a massive chamber in the very, very top of the central spire where they will all meet and discuss the politics of the kingdom and that kind of stuff. I have also said that buried beneath the spire, this mega spire, is the very first vampire who helped found this entire nation, and his soul is trapped within a crystal in the basement, and that's part of this entire process of fog generation. There's got to be something linked there. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is adding in these kind of locations. What Maria is suggesting is that there has to be a plot purpose. There has to be a reason for them to be there. Now, under normal circumstances, yes, why are you putting effort into creating something if it's never going to get used? On the other hand, if you are creating a role-playing game, you want to have locations that you maybe not have any plan for or doesn't necessarily connect to the main story, but the PCs could discover them and go on a side quest, if you will, within that space. So this is a really cool template. It's super, super quick to fill in, and it just triggers the imagination, asking little questions that just help you to build up this space. So the central spire thing, I think, is really cool, and it has to be built on top of a pinnacle of something, a motte, perhaps, from the old Motte and Bailey. And so that's what has come of that. Now we move on to exercise number 1, evolving fantasy traits. Now, traits in this context are how do we create unique monsters and flora and fauna within our space. Now, we know for a fact that Drakkenmoor is full of these blood oaks, these trees that were cursed by the druids to being blood hungry, and they can attack. Can they move around? I don't know. So looking at what Marie has posited for us here, we have to think about what exactly it is. What are the traits that we're going to be giving it? What are the ancestral forms? How does pressure drive its adaptation? Does it have an intermediate stage? Does it kind of go through multiple stages? If you think about I want to say one of the most iconic stage of growths, these metamorphoses that happen, is the alien predator, the xenomorph. And it starts out as a face hugger, and then it becomes the little snake-like internal beast that then bursts out of the person's chest, and then it grows into its final form, which is the traditional xenomorph. So it's things like that. What is its final form? And then what about fantastical shenanigans? What happens when the evolutionary process is interfered with? And that's something that I think we sometimes get hints of. And you say, but if a creature grew up in this space, it would have adapted to this space. If magic is a thing, we would see creatures that can use magic. That doesn't make them magical. That makes them normal creatures for a magical space, if you know what I mean. So I am going to create this tree, this blood oak, and just explore the template, see what it throws at me, see what it inspires in me, and then I'm going to see what comes of that. So here we go. I'm smiling because once again, some place that I have known for decades has now changed subtly and for the better. What Marie has done by asking, is there an intermediate stage? It forces me to look at these blood oaks going, these oaks are a curse by the druids, but 850 years ago they were cursed. That's a lot of time. Not a huge amount of time if you're an oak tree. Fair enough. But it is a long time. And these oak trees hunger for blood. Fair enough. So how do they go about doing that? Well, their branches, they've got to be able to move their branches, and they shoot roots up through the ground. That I've had in my campaign for a long time. But prompting the intermediate stage, I thought, well, trees definitely go through this growth process. They start out as a seed, and then they grow into a sapling, and then they become a tree. What if the sapling is mobile? What if it can actually scurry about like a crazy little vine sapling thing? Its roots don't yet dig deep enough into the ground to anchor it in place. So that makes it this rather nasty little ambush predator that will disguise itself as just a little tree, a little sapling, nothing to see here, and then suddenly it'll scurry forward and try and impale you with all of its little twigs and things. I think that could be really, really cool. And then that got me to thinking about, well, the seed of these blood oaks. How and what is the seed like? And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm still pondering it. The seed, I think, could be these little sacks of squishy blood-like stuff, but it's blood and sap and tree DNA in a little bag. And oh, he said for the 5th time. These little bags, when the tree is ready to reproduce, all that happens is these little bags drop from the tree and they splatter onto anything living, and little shoots will start to grow through the blood into the flesh of the living creature, and then the tree will feast on its first living creature, turn into a sapling, and then run away. Very nice. So that's how the seeds work. So that means the seeds are incredibly dangerous. But if you can harvest those seeds, what can you do with them? What can you do with them? You can take those seeds that normally would sprout, and if you boil them beforehand, they become incredibly nutritious. They become like this black pudding haggis mix, which I think would be incredibly restorative. But if you don't cook it properly, saplings will grow within you. Lovely. All right. And I think, having spoken to Marie, that is exactly what she wanted this book to do, was to cause you to fill in what seem to be ordinary templates, but then to have these most extraordinary ideas, which are just, they're golden, in my opinion. I would never want to sleep in a forest in Drakvarhard. You're sleeping and the next minute, oh, it was rain. No, it wasn't. Oh, anyway, cool. Worksheet 2H, Fantastical Flora and Fauna, pretty much something that we've already covered with the blood oak. However, I do think that what I want to do here is I want to explore what kind of agriculture is going to exist, because Drakvarhard and all of Drakkenmore has no sunshine. It's perpetual fog. So what grows in perpetual fog? What grows in a very damp environment where there isn't a lot of sunlight? What do those kind of plants look like? So I'm going to go and look at Google and look for plants that grow in low light or in very moist conditions and see what can inspire me. And then I'm going to translate that into this template. Right. So coming from the spruce.com website, here are the best house plants for low light. And we've got a spider plant, pothos, lucky bamboo, fern, and a snake plant. I mean, it's like the universe was like, well, here's some pretty cool things. A spider plant, a snake plant. The name's just, it's like, I don't need to be creative. I really don't. I'm just going to fill in what's here. A spider plant. Can you imagine? There's this frondy like thing, and its leaves are moving in the breeze. No, they're not. No, they're not. This fricking plant is crawling all over the place like a fricking spider, leaving this trail of sap, which is sticky and causes all sorts of stickiness. This is why we have these templates, to help us develop these ideas. The snake plant. Has it got venom? Do the leaves have these little barbs at the end? And the plant purposefully moves when you come close to it so that it will stab you, venom you, you die right next to it, and then it feeds off of you. This is a theme, and I think that these are cool and fun ideas that the Druids may not have anticipated when they created the Blood Oaks. We now have spider plants and snake plants, and we know exactly what they look like, well, because they kind of look like the thing that they are named after, which is such a human thing. Pothos doesn't sound particularly exciting. Lucky bamboo. Bamboo is discongruent with my head in terms of that thinking. And then ferns. Well, ferns are pretty ancient things. They've been going for a very, very long time. And I know certainly the fern in my own garden died when we may or may not have perhaps forgotten that ferns don't like bright sunlight. And so as a result, planted it in a very sunny spot. The moment we moved it to the shadow, it flourished. So I think let's work with, we've done exotic. Let's just work with a simple one. Let's work with a fern. I think that's enough of that. Some very cool stuff. And again, Marie is just driving everything back, as you should, to things like cultural impact, magical system. How do they tie back to your magical system? And even in D&D, where we have an established magical system, we need to think about how have these plants changed and evolved. And so with the mist ferns, what happens is they absorb magic. It's part of their abilities. And that causes them to form boils. And when the boils burst, they release this stuff called fern rot, which supposedly can animate the dead. Otherwise, it just smells horrid and will ruin the fern crop. So it doesn't sound like it's a huge impact. It doesn't sound massive. But think about it. I now have these giant fields of ferns that the player characters can hide in. Underneath the ferns, I said there's little spider plants that grow there. There's pools of fern rot, which could be nasty, especially if the PCs kill a character and the character falls onto one of the ferns and the fern rot bursts open, the character gets back up again. So it's a sort of a reanimating process. The economy runs on mist fern. The fern is taken, it's dried, it's ground into a flour, which has a bit of a woody taste, but it's not an unpleasant taste. So all of the baked goods are made out of mist fern flour. Or mist flour, I suppose would be called. You see, again, all of this stuff is just adding and enriching this world space for me to then add to my consciousness and go, you know what, this is it. Now, Marie takes this section number 2, even further, talking about domesticated animals and the like. In Drakenmore, we have domesticated animals. There are horses, there are dogs and cats, and there are oxen, there are cows, there are sheep. I think that each of them would have adapted a slightly oily coat. Now, my experience is that there is a buck, an antelope called a waterbuck. And these waterbuck are predominantly found, surprise, in water. But their skin, their fur, is covered in this very thick, foul-smelling oil to protect them from the water. So I imagine that horses, sheep, oxen, cows will all have developed this sort of outer covering of oil, which is nasty, but it's waterproof, right? It doesn't do well on fires, it smokes and it smells terrible. The meat still tastes fine. The meat has the oil on the skin has no impact on the taste of the meat. If you prepare the meat properly, so you have to skin it first and then start cutting into the meat. If you cut into the meat before skinning it, the oil gets into the meat and then it just tastes rancid. So that's what these templates have done. We have created now on this series a complete journey, a space in which we can have fun. Now, the rest of the book is as interesting, as deep dived as this section was. So if you are into this kind of thing, and I know that a lot of you are, it's well worth checking out. Now, next week, an important announcement. Next week is the launch on the 2nd of October of my Kickstarter. So there will not be a video on this channel. Instead, at 7 p.m. British summertime, although it doesn't feel like summer anymore. But at 7 p.m. British summertime, I will be doing a live broadcast on my old channel, How to Be a Great GM, and that will be for the launch of the Kickstarter. So I encourage you to come and join me for that one. We'll be talking more about Braxia and what you can expect from that Kickstarter. And then the following week, we will be going back to our Rumble in the Ruins format, where I have gone to a remarkable cave system. I've got all of the footage. It's truly, truly awe-inspiring, terrifying, and, well, a little demystifying too. It is Chislehurst Caves in a very unlikely position in London itself, and I had a wonderful tour of that space. So that is where we'll be rumbling in a week's time after next week. So bear that in mind. Until then, I wish for you to hit that like button or the subscribe button or the bell button so that you can get reminded when these videos are dropping. And until we meet again, I wish you and yours the happiest of adventure creation.